I was so close to naming this video Why Disabled People Are Salty as Fuck. Inspired by one of the tweets that you will see featured in this video, but it's just so much more than that. Hi everybody, and welcome back to an Invisible and Invisible Illness Awareness Project. Ever since the whole COVID craze started being talked about a lot, I was seeing a lot of chronically ill or disabled people discussing the issues that this was bringing up specifically for them. Then I saw a video by this YouTuber, Franco. Basically, she decided to start this new series called Globally Minded, and for the first episode, she was talking to friends in a bunch of different countries, asking how their experience with lockdown has been. And that inspired me to take what I've been seeing from other chronically ill people and share the chronic illness perspective. So a lot of this is probably going to be deeper and darker than what she covered, but I do think this is an important perspective to put out there. In other news, I am finally wearing my Uninvisible t-shirt. If you would like a chronic illness awareness t-shirt, you can find the link in the description. I am once again doing one of these videos where I feature a compilation of public tweets that I find on Twitter. This is a very strenuous style of video for me. It takes me days of scrolling back through the feed of just a single person who doesn't even post that often to gather all of this information. When I do this, I end up getting tweets from multiple people because I'm taking the tweets that were retweeted by the person whose profile I'm searching through. For this video, I really wanted to have as much variety as possible. I wanted to show you guys that these perspectives are not isolated incidents, that so many people are feeling this way. And in order to do that, I wanted to have tweets from as many people as possible expressing more or less the same ideas. The problem is that it just took me so long and it took so much energy to get through this. I did end up getting a lot of tweets from just searching this one profile that I decided the other 11 profiles that I wanted to go through, maybe I could do without those. In this case, the particular person whose profile I used to branch off from is a friend of mine who is much more severe than I am. She is mostly bedbound, has been sick for years, and is incredibly underweight. She weighs like 30 kilos. She has tried everything to put on weight, everything to get the medical attention she needs, and she's really struggling. So even though I am also struggling myself to get the donations I need to survive, and I partially continue making these videos and putting them out there because I'm hoping that they will bring attention to my situation and help me get the donations that I need to survive, I also would like to draw attention to this friend and ask that if you can, please consider looking into what she's dealing with and if you can possibly help her. She's currently in Pakistan and is trying to get medical treatment abroad, which is a hurdle of its own, and everything is incredibly expensive. She has to pay all of this herself. Simple things like IV fluids and nutrition to help her put on weight are very expensive. So I'm going to put the link to her GoFundMe in this description. Please check it out. If you can't donate, it would also be a huge help if you could share it. As always, the link to my GoFundMe is in the description of all of the videos. And if you get value out of this, you can also become a patron on Patreon or donate via PayPal. So I've divided all of these into different categories. Some of them have a lot more examples than others, and I'm hoping you guys will forgive me for that. So I asked a few chronically ill friends what questions they would like to see answered, and I also came up with a few of my own. The first question was, how does it make you feel seeing other people on lockdown? So here's what people had to say. Millions Missing Australia shared a tweet. Do you need some hints on how to survive home detention? Ask a person with ME/CFS. Many of us have been living in isolation for years. We still miss doing normal things like working and socializing. Welcome to life behind the invisibility cloak. And you can see a picture of an ME patient holding a sign, "I was self-isolating before it was cool." Daisy tweeted, "It's such a strange situation to watch the whole world panic about a virus with no cure when for decades, millions of people with ME/CFS have had their lives ruined by a virus and no one has seemed to care much at all." Megan Jane Shepard tweets, "It can be really hard to empathize with healthy people regarding self-isolating. Someone I know just asked how my family are coping with isolation, which is nice of them to ask, but they've never asked how I'm coping with being constantly housebound, bedbound with ME/CFS. It's so frustrating." Mark Raga replies, "I hope that people will not forget isolation during the pandemic and have sympathy for patients with ME/CFS and other serious diseases. I fear that most people will forget all of that. Let's hope and continue to inform people." Aglena says, "I wouldn't wish ME/CFS on anyone. It's a horrific disease, but maybe this is what it's going to take to finally start taking us seriously. A huge increase in the number of people suffering will be the price to pay to free us all from this hell." ME Stopped My Life replied, "I totally understand where you're coming from, and I've been dealing with these thoughts the last few weeks. Unfortunately, I think it will happen and be called something else like post-COVID syndrome, or they'll ignore it completely, as we know it's happened before." I tweeted, "This makes me think of the original title for Unrest, Canary in a Coal Mine. People with ME or other chronic illnesses, invisible illnesses, or rare diseases are the canaries who are used to being stuck in a cage, now being joined by ableds." Larissa Fan says, "Think of what it's like practicing social distancing and sheltering at home. Then imagine you can't go for walks, exercise, or garden. Maybe you can't even read or watch TV. This is what it's like every day for the many with myalgic encephalomyelitis. Please help." Alice Wong quotes an article that says, "Amid this pandemic, more than ever in my life, I see how much non-disabled people need the disabled community. We are experts when it comes to isolation and pandemics. We know how to advocate our legal rights as patients, navigate Medicaid and other private insurance claims, and stock up on supplies for weeks. We know how to live vulnerably, which is to live together. We know all this because for many of us, it's our daily reality." Jen Brea tweets, "I'm so used to being inside, in bed, Twitter's the only way I know something is not normal. It's truly a strange feeling. I understand how hard it is for so many people for so many reasons, economic, social, familial, practical, emotional, but for me, this is ordinary life." And I gotta say, for me, this whole lockdown thing really hasn't changed my life. I watch other people going stir crazy and I'm just like, this is a normal day for me. This is normal life. This is nothing new. Monique Duge says, "Just yesterday, a friend was asking how I was holding up. When I said, 'Huh?' she realized that she had only dipped her toe into what had been my reality for over a decade." Hassan Kander Ali says, 100% true. People are experiencing the life we have been living for many years." In Liz Aki tweets, "I feel so triggered by everyone's self-isolation and self-care routine tweets and posts. It's like a stab in the heart." Monique Duge replies, "Yes, it can be hard to watch them feel sorry for themselves when we've gone through years or decades of this enforced loneliness because the abled friends could not be bothered to remember we're still alive, even if we're too sick to go out." Sparrow Liz tweets, "I have this sinking feeling that abled people are going to explain to me how much they understand my chronic illness because they were quarantined for 2 weeks. Meanwhile, my chronic illness doesn't have an end date, even in 18 months. Please let there not be think pieces. It's cool if you have a greater understanding of what it's like to be housebound because of quarantine, but like, if you're this new to understanding life with chronic illness, maybe just listen to us more instead of deciding you're an expert now. I can just hear it now. I got so much done while I, an abled person, was stuck at home during quarantine. Why do you, a person with chronic illness who's stuck at home all the time, not get a bunch of stuff done?" Nadia Bolt-Weber tweets, "It's also now a pandemic of human disappointment. Canceled trips, art openings, sports events, book tours, concerts. things folks have been planning for, working toward, and excited about. That's a lot of grieving on top of sickness. Miranda Hart replies, "This is a really good way for people to understand those who suffer from chronic illness, particularly the many who are housebound. As well as dealing with illness, there's this daily grief on missing out on the simplest things people take for granted. A cafe, a walk, a bus ride." Lee Stalker replies, "As someone with a chronic condition who often spends weeks and sometimes months housebound, I find people's attitudes to having to temporarily stay at home bizarre and a bit selfish, to be honest. Don't they realize it could be the difference between life and death for a lot of people?" Achlena replies, "That's everyday life for us with chronic illness like ME/CFS, and it's not just for 2 weeks. It's for years or maybe decades. Not living, existing. Nothing that makes life life is available to us. All out of reach." Hassan Kader Ali says, "The general feeling is that the world always ignores chronically ill people's voices and sometimes denies their illnesses, considering some of them as fake illnesses. Chronically ill persons miss so many years of their normal life, sense of happiness, joy, and any good taste of life. They have been forced to practice the social distancing since they got ill. So people in the whole world have experienced for some weeks due to COVID-19 what we have been experiencing for so many long years. The difference is that they are able to move in their self-isolation places freely, whereas we can't." Joe tweets, "For those of us who have been housebound for months, years, decades even, this COVID-19 is giving us all sorts of benefits we've never been afforded before. Please don't forget us when the virus is gone." Miranda Hart replies, "I've said this before, this is a time to understand those housebound and severely debilitated by invisible chronic illnesses. There are thousands for whom isolation is their life. And when this is over, we must not forget the support they need and learn more about the conditions." Achlena says, "I'm 100% unapologetic and I stand by my view that people missing out on trips, concerts, etc., and calling it grief is completely insensitive and damn right heartbreaking when there are millions chronically ill who'd give their limb only to be so temporarily missing life." Jamie Z replies, "Yes, I don't mind them being sad or disappointed or stressed. It's using the word grief. I grieve the fact that I may never have children, that I may never have a job again, or friends getting tired of me and my health. Missing a concert is not the same as missing a life." Jen Brea tweets, "Perhaps in this, the experience of living chronic illness once again offers a lesson for the wider world and for this moment. I've written many times about how the experience of chronic illness is one of living in a state of constant grieving. When you first get sick, you grieve all that you've lost, but then you also grieve all that you will lose as you keep moving through each stage of life. With some kinds of traumas or losses, grief is more linear. You do eventually move through it. For us, grief is a circle. And in this specific moment in time, when we don't know how long this will last or what or whom we might lose, I think for everyone, grief is also a circle." Laura Elliott tweets, "Any other housebound for months/years folks finding all of the 'what do you miss the most' lists being shared by people after less than 2 weeks inside quite difficult to read? I'm trying to hold a state of grace, which isn't sadly always a natural state for me about it, remembering that the first few weeks of housebound sickness were horrifying and frightening and very immediate, and people have a right to miss their lives, especially in a scary time. But reading the lists made by people who know they're probably going to be able to enjoy those things again in the next few months is bringing all my illness grief to the surface, and I'm finding it very difficult to be entirely sympathetic when people can go outside. I would just really love to be able to go on a run once a day, or know that in a few months I could walk into a pub or start working again or go for a coffee. Add your own detailed list of things people have missed for 2 weeks and extend it to my 4 years or your own housebound time. I just really hope people don't forget about us again. Everyone now is benefiting from things like live streamed events, free fitness courses, remote festivals, cheap streamings, etc., as well as worldwide camaraderie. None of this existed in 2016 when I disappeared from life. It's difficult. I feel sad for everyone. At the same time, I'm hopelessly and bitterly jealous of them." The dichotomy is hard. This thread is unexpectedly doing numbers, so if any of you newly locked down healthy folks would like to do something concrete for some of us long-term housebound folks, you can donate to the OMF for ME research and give us some hope too. Coffee Spoonie says, "It's interesting watching them collectively go through the grieving and learning process, but I have yet to see one abled person acknowledge that homebound disabled people have gone through this, except we did it alone and without general support and understanding." Ajlena tweets, "I feel extremely bitter. I hate to admit it, but it's the truth. I'm finding all of this insanely painful. I imagine what it would be like if I could also rejoin life in a few weeks or months. It hurts so much." Jacqueline Wilson replies, "Yes, and imagine what it would be like to be at home and actually be able to do something with your time because you have energy, stamina, motivation, instead of a body and mind that doesn't work properly. We struggle to do the most basic tasks, and some can't. ME is debilitating." Aparna tweets, "I think what I find extra hard to swallow about all of this is that they are getting all of the empathy and attention, online access, support, legislation, financial, sick leave, and mental health check-ins for 2 weeks of being homebound that we failed to get for years. It's not that I don't have empathy, it's that the flow of empathy is and has always been so deeply unequal, so one-sided." Alicia tweets, "It's definitely hard because I remember how depressed I was when I first got sick, and I feel so jealous about everything my abled friends are doing on lockdown, when I only have enough energy for social media and watching TV. I would love to be able to accomplish half of what they are, but also nice for them to kind of understand what I've gone through, but also they still don't get it because they have so much energy and are running out of things to do while I have plenty I could do, but no energy to do it." Jeff Antonakos tweets, "Though most of the world now is being forced to live like a person with ME, and instead of sad, I feel hella optimistic. A lot of people won't be able to find us non-relatable anymore. I've been basically living the COVID life for a strong 5 to 6 years, 29 right now, and about 15 years progressively." Jen Brea retweets, "What about you? If you've been long-term homebound, do you find glimmers of hope or optimism in this collective experience of being at home? What do you think will or won't change when society reopens? What do you hope changes?" Saren Sketches replies, "I want to have hope that we will gain some understanding, but I think it will be a mix of people moving on and forgetting and people telling us how to live based on their healthy lockdown experience. I live in dread of the grief that will come for us when life returns to their normal." Tori Wheelis replies, "Gonna be honest, I'm afraid people will try to conflate their experience with mine. They are well, full of energy, at home doing craft projects and cleaning. I'm here recovering after a shower. It's just not the same experience, and ableism likes to hide in fake empathy." And Ben says, "Nothing will change when this passes, for healthy people at least. People just move on. But I feel sad for those who will have ME-like symptoms after corona. Scientists here in Holland predict 80% of the people who had corona will have lasting symptoms." It's Emmy Jonesy replies, "Nothing will change. If anything, it will be worse. We're back to normal and out living our lives. What's wrong with you? There will be even more discrimination and judgment. Sorry, but after 30 years of this, my optimism is gone." Gwen Dujardin replies, "My hope is for sufficient empathy to spark research for chronic illnesses that make people homebound. My worry is that surviving COVID will increase prejudice against those who can't come back from chronic conditions. My fear is that COVID leads to ME and we'll all be invisible." Journey Through the Fog replies, "Although I want to be optimistic, I don't think it will change anything. After this crisis is over, we will be forgotten again. I hope I'm proved wrong. Also, although the masses are experiencing isolation, they're healthy and abled. Their isolation is completely different to ours." Life Didn't Begin at 40 replies, "I feel exactly the same as you. My healthy friends don't get what we go through. We're often unable to do the things they are enjoying, being active, but indoors. I think all this will soon be forgotten by many." Alicia replies, "Yes, I had to explain to an aunt the other day that no, I'm not finding lots of time to cook or bake, something I used to enjoy, because I in fact do not have the energy to stand for that long. She has so much time on her hands and doesn't get that it's different for me." In response to somebody asking about information on the psychological and social effects of being kept in isolation for several weeks, Jen Brea replied, "Someone who's a part of a very large community of people who have been mostly homebound for 1 to 30 years, I have a hard time mustering empathy for the effects of short-term life-saving isolation. Melanie tweets, it's somewhat amusing watching the rest of the world get so upset over sudden routine change. Perhaps we should pull out a DSM-5 and diagnose their rigidity. Tim Boxall tweeted, a message from a disabled person to all you healthy ableds freaking out over getting sick. Have you tried yoga? Maybe you could meditate COVID-19 away. Or perhaps it's all in your head. Possibly you could pray it away. Yeah, welcome to our world. And if that sounds a bit callous, it's because that's the kind of stuff we have to put up with hearing all the time. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of emotion there. Things have been very tense. This has been especially difficult on a lot of people, and a lot of people are anticipating an even more difficult time when life goes back to normal for everyone else. I decided, since this video has gone on for so long and I've been making a lot of really long videos lately, I'm going to stop it there and I will continue on to the other sections in another video. So check back for that, and I will see you guys next week.